Alan Watts once said, "When you get the message, hang up the phone." He was talking about spiritual experience, about the truth that once you understand, you no longer need to cling to the tools that got you there. But what if the same is true for lust? What if lust, like a phone call, is only meant to wake you up, and once you've heard the message, you're meant to put it down? Watts understood that life's deepest illusions often wear the mask of necessity. We think we need certain things. We think we can't live without them. And lust is perhaps the greatest of these illusions. It tells you that pleasure is life. That release is reward. That chasing desire is the same as fulfilling your purpose. But Watts would have laughed at that, because to him, lust wasn't the enemy. The bondage to lust is fire. And fire can cook your food or burn your home to the ground. It's not the flame itself, it's whether you control it, or it controls you. And here's the truth. The man ruled by lust is never free. He's always reaching, always chasing, always leaning forward into the next high, and missing the power of standing still. Watts often drew from Taoism and Zen to explain that the highest state is effortless awareness. A state where nothing pulls you off center, where desire flows through you but doesn't move you. And this is the paradox. When you no longer need to chase lust, you gain access to something far more potent. Presence. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to get something, but because you already have it. The masters of old knew this. The samurai, the yogis, the monks, they weren't celibate because they hated pleasure. They were celibator, at least disciplined, because they loved freedom. Freedom from being a puppet pulled by urges. Freedom from the tyranny of must. Watts believed the man who achieves this freedom steps into what he called God's domain. Not as a deity in the sky, but as the awakened self. It's the one who sees the game of life and plays it consciously. And that's where lust transforms it. Stops being a chain. It becomes a tool. It becomes a creative current you can direct into your work, your art, your mission. Napoleon Hill called this sexual transmutation. Watts might have called it the dance. Because when you stop running from lust or collapsing into it, you start moving with it without being consumed. And in that movement, you discover a truth every powerful man eventually learns. The man who can say no to lust can say no to anything. He can walk away from deals that compromise him. He can stand firm when everyone else folds. He can lead not from hunger, but from fullness. This is why the man who masters lust doesn't just gain control over his body. He gains dominion over his life. Asterisk. Think of lust as a wild river. Most men are swept away in its current. A few try to dam it entirely and find themselves brittle, resentful, or numb. But the wise man, he builds channels. He redirects the flow. Watts spoke often about flow, about aligning with the natural energy of life instead of fighting it. Lust is part of that energy. It's primal. Yes, but it's also divine in potential. Because sexual energy is life energy. It's the same current that grows forests, spins galaxies, and births civilizations. So why waste it on a screen? Why spill it for a moment's relief, when you could refine it into something eternal? The man who masters lust doesn't fear it. He respects it. He knows that every temptation is an invitation to see how much power he truly holds. And here's the thing, women can feel this. A man who is needy for her body is predictable, replaceable, forgettable, but a man who appreciates her beauty without being owned by it, that man is rare. He's not impressed by skin alone. He's not pulled into games. He's rooted in something deeper, and that depth is intoxicating. Watts said, "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." Every time you choose mastery over indulgence, you are reborn. You step out of the cycle of craving and collapse. You enter the space where your mind is clear, your energy is full, and your presence is undeniable. This isn't just spiritual poetry, it's neuroscience. Retention, whether it's semen retention, attention retention, or emotional retention, changes the brain. It increases focus, stabilizes mood, and sharpens your instincts. It rewires you from consumer to creator, and that's the domain Watts was pointing to. Not a heaven above, but a state of consciousness here and now. A state where you play the game of life without being trapped by it. Where you can feel the pull of desire and smile, because you know. You hold the leash. So how do you master lust in a world designed to weaponize it against you? You start with awareness. Watts said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." You don't fight lust like an enemy. You sit with it. You breathe into it. Watch it without obeying it. You stop treating the urge as a command and start seeing it as a wave that rises and falls. And as you practice, something happens. The waves lose their grip. The ocean of your mind becomes calm. And from that calm, you can choose. This is where true masculinity emerges, not in suppression, not in indulgence, but in mastery. The man who can master lust can master business. He can master conflict. He can master himself. He no longer fears temptation because he understands it. He no longer needs to prove control, he simply has it. And in that control, he becomes dangerous in the best way, because now he can direct his energy anywhere into building wealth, into protecting his tribe, into creating art, into deepening love. He doesn't lose power in the bedroom, he brings it everywhere. This is why Watts equated mastery of desire with entering God's domain. Because when you're no longer enslaved by what the world dangles in front of you, you become the one who writes the rules. The game doesn't end, but you start playing it as the player, not the pawn. So here's the question Watts would leave you with. Will you keep answering the call of lust like a phone that never stops ringing? Or will you hang up, step into the silence where real power lives? Because the man who masters lust doesn't lose anything. He gains everything. And in that gaining, he enters the only kingdom worth ruling.